This topic analysis will be for the April PF topic, which is resolved the United Nations should abolish permanent membership on its Security Council. So now let's talk about the definitions. The first definition is the overarching definition of the UNSC, or the United Nations Security Council, which is made up of 15 countries. These 15 nations come together to discuss issues about international conflict, climate change, and different economical issues, but the majority of the things that they talk about and deliberate over resolutions is usually conflict. So currently, the Russo-Ukrainian war and the Gaza war would be at the top of their priority list. The second definition is abolish, which is to get rid of something. And the third and last definition is permanent membership, which refers to the permanent member states, also known as the P5, which is China, France, Russia, UK, and the United States. And something that the permanent members have that the non permanent members don't is veto power, or the ability to strike down a resolution despite how much representation or votes it has on the UNSC. So essentially, one of these five countries can use their veto power to strike down a resolution that they don't like. And we will examine why that is a good or bad thing in the later slides. So now let's talk about AF ground. The first AF contention is veto power being bad and being abused. For example, Russia and China has blocked ceasefire efforts within the Gaza war multiple times over the last year, incentivizing a power trip and incentivizing them to abuse their power. And the problem is that despite the humanitarian concerns that are happening in this conflict that the United States is raising, Russia and China does not want to see sort of peace and stability in the region, but rather they would rather have this conflict brew on for them to sort of get control of the political spheres. And so the problem is that if one of the five countries on the P5, if they use their veto power too much, that would hinder all progress. And so if you get rid of permanent membership, that means that veto power would go away, meaning that the types of humanitarian issues wouldn't be a core topic of controversy. The second contention for the affirmative is representation. Abolishing permanent membership enables an increase of representation in other regions by expanding the number of non-permanent members. Also, on face, if you get rid of permanent membership, that means that everyone is a non-permanent member, meaning that there would always be some sort of countries that are just stepping into the UNSC, some countries that are just stepping out. And so, by nature of being non permanent, that means that you can step away from the UNSC whenever you wish, meaning that other countries that want to become a part of the UNSC can simply join. And so, the idea is that if more countries come and go into the UNSC, more issues are going to be represented. For example, if the P5 countries, if they're the only ones that have veto power, they're only going to be issues that they think are the most important. For example, they would talk about lithium ion mines and how we need to decrease climate change by increasing our lithium mining operations. But from the perspective of many developing nations that are in the African continent, which is the source of those lithium mines, they would oppose that. And so the idea is that if you abolish permanent membership, that would overall increase representation and it would enable more developing nations to have a voice within the UNSC that makes international decisions. And so to review, the affirmative can be summed up in one or two words, and that is democratic backsliding. Veto power enables countries to abuse their veto power, which would halt legislation in progress, and it would prevent the UNSC from ensuring peace in different regions across the world. So now let's talk about neg ground. The first contention for the negative is political gridlock. And so the idea is that without vetoes, it will be much more difficult for the UNSC to reach consensus on important issues. For example, if a resolution cannot be stricken down by the United States immediately, that means that that resolution has to go through the same deliberative process of debating and voting. And so that would not only take a long period of time, but it would also clog up the UNSC, which would hinder progress on important issues. If veto power is used, they would be able to recognize which issues are less important than others, which is exactly what they are doing right now. But the idea is that without veto power, it becomes harder to filter through which types of resolutions to actually focus on. The second negative contention is status quo solvency. Although this contention may seem a little bit silly, The argument and the idea is that the UNSC passed a resolution for a Gaza ceasefire. That's one empirical example that you can leverage in your debates. And the idea is that even if the affirmative makes all these claims about how the UNSC and permanent membership is a bad thing, the negative can simply say that, oh, even if the affirmative characterizes it as possibly a bad thing in some instances, it's overall serving its purpose. It's actually increasing peace in the region. And so that's not a reason to abolish permanent membership. But again, these arguments need to be tied back to permanent membership being good, and that way you can directly clash with the affirmative's arguments about permanent membership being bad. And so it's a little bit harder to be on the negative in this debate because you need to have specific reasons why permanent membership is a good thing. But I would say that these arguments like political gridlock and status quo solvency can be one way on how you sort of contextualize that argument, but you need additional arguments about why permanent membership and veto power is a good thing, which would directly clash with the affirmative's arguments. And so, to summarize the negative contentions, the entirety of the negative positions can be summarized into very similarly political gridlock, because if a veto is removed, that means that countries aren't able to decisively decide which resolutions to pass. That would delay progress on important issues, clog up the courts, and essentially remove progress on more pressing and urgent matters. And additionally, since more countries recognize that there is no veto, they would rush to introduce resolutions because they think that the affirmative has promised them representation. And so they would start increasing resolutions in different types of bills. But again, that would cause clogs in the council, delaying progress on important issues. And in the end, even if there's a minor increase of representation, the overall amount of progress that is able to get guaranteed would actually decrease. And so thank you for watching this topic analysis for the April PF topic, and let us know if you have any questions in the comment section below.